Hi everyone, so now we're going to be talking about two-way frequency tables, and two-way frequency tables are just a way that we can organize data based on different surveys. The reason why they're called two-way frequency tables is because the data is organized based on two things. A lot of these that we're going to use examples for will have like whether you're a male or a female, or if you're a 7th grader or an 8th grader, if you like a different type of sport, if you go to a certain class at school. So each of these tables will have two ways to organize the data. And one way will be in the columns, and then the other way will be in a row. And it's almost like a Venn diagram of sorts. That's why because then you can compare two groups of things, but you get to compare a lot more than what you would be able to do in a Venn diagram. So let's get started with some of these examples, and I think it'll make more sense as we go along. The first example says, a survey asked males and females, if you could have a new vehicle, would you want a sports utility vehicle or a sports car? And the data is shown below. So the way that we read these tables is that this 21 that is right, I'm going to use a red pen, that's right here is says that there are 21 males that want an SUV. And then this 39 right here says that there are 39 males that want a sports car. And then the same goes for the numbers below it. So there are 135 females that want an SUV and 45 females that want a sports car. And so notice that there are also two columns that haven't been filled out, and those are the total, or I guess there's a column in a row, and those are the total columns in the total row. And the good news here is what we're asking you to do for this self-check and for these examples is just fill out the rest of the missing information on here. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is basically the first thing I need to do is find the total amount of males. Now the total amount of males will go into this box right here. And if I know that there are 21 males that want an SUV and 39 males that want a sports car, to find the total amount of males, I would just do 21 plus 39, because that's all of the males that I surveyed. And 21 plus 39 gives me 60. So what that tells me is that there's 60 total males in my survey. Now I can do the same thing with females. I'm going to just add along the row. So I know there are 135 females that want an SUV, and then 45 females that want a sports car. And so in total, if I do 135 plus 45, I get 180 females. Okay, great. Now we have both of the rows filled out. Now I need the total row. The good news here is to find the total row, all we have to do is add the columns. And so the total, I'm going to use let's use a red pen still. The total column that would go right here is the total amount of people that want an SUV. So we know there are 21 males that want an SUV and 135 females that want an SUV. So I'm going to add 21 to 135 and I get 156, which means there's a total of 156 people that want SUVs that I surveyed. And then the same thing goes for the sports car. So to find the total amount of people who want a sports car, I'm going to do 39 because there were 39 males and 45 because there were 45 females that wanted a sports car. When I add those two things together, I get 84. So there was a total of 84 people, male and female, that wanted sports cars. Now there's one more box that's left blank, which is that bottom right-hand corner. And the cool news is this is a good way to double check that we've done it right. So what we can do is we know from this column right here is that there's a total of 60 males and 180 females. So this box right here should tell me the total amount of people that were surveyed. So if I can add my males and females, so 60 plus 180 would give me 240. So I know it's 240 people that are surveyed. Now to double check that, I also know that there were a total of 156 people that wanted an SUV and 84 people that wanted a sports car. So potentially, let me do that in red. So potentially I can add those two things and make sure that that also equals 240. So if I do 156 plus 84, I should also get 240, which I do, which means that I did it right, everything adds up well, and that is my final answer. That's how we fill out the rest of that table. Okay, so that example was just the totals, which means we just added all the columns, added all the rows, and ended up with that. The second example is super similar. It's another two-way frequency table, and it says the DMV collected information about how many people owned cars and had driver's licenses. And so we have columns that say driver's license and no those are rows. The rows that have driver's license and no driver's license, and then columns that have car and no car, meaning that somebody has a driver's license, somebody doesn't have a driver's license, somebody has a car, somebody does not have a car. But this time it's slightly different than the first example, because instead of just finishing off the total columns, we have to fill out some of the inside boxes. And instead of adding for those, we would subtract. So I'm going to start with this box right here on the top, the one that's no car. This box would be the people who have a driver's license but do not own a car. And to figure that out, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the total amount of people that have driver's license. We know that there are 47 people that have a driver's license. Great. We also know that 43 people who have a driver's license also own a car. So what we can do to figure out the amount of people that do not have a car but also have a driver's license is we can do 47, which is in the total column, minus the 43. So basically I just take the two numbers that are in the top row, this 47 and this 43, and I subtract them. So 47 minus 43 would give me 4, which means there should be 4 people that have a driver's license but do not own a car. And if we kind of think about it the way that we did the first example, this would mean that 43 plus 4 should equal 47, which it does. So that kind of is our double check method. Now, if we go on to the second row, the one with the no driver's license, we have 2 missing blanks, which we can't do a lot with the 2 missing blanks. So instead of going to the second row, what I'm going to do is look at the first column, the column of the car. So how many people own a car? Because we only have 1 blank in that column. Again, I'm looking at this column right here. And so I know there are a total of 67 people who own a car, and 43 of those people have a driver's license. So how many of those people do not have a driver's license? We're going to do the same thing as what we just did with the other one. We're going to take the total amount, which is 67, and subtract the amount of people who have driver's license to figure out how many people do not have a driver's license. So 67 minus 43 gives me 24. So there should be 24 people that do not have a driver's license but own a car. And again, we can double check that by adding 43 and 24. 43 plus 24 gives me 67, so totally works out. Now we can go on to the second column, and the second column is really similar to that first example because you have the amount of people with the driver's license and you have the amount of people with no driver's license. So to find the total amount, which is in this box right here, all we have to do is add 4 and 29. So 4 plus 29 gives me 33, and I know that there's a total of 33 people that do not own a car. Now I basically have everything. I just have to fill out these last 2 boxes on the total column. And to do that, we add. So to find the total amount of people that have no driver's license, I would do 24 plus 29, and I get 53. So the 53 should go right in here. And then to find the total amount of people surveyed, which is in that bottom right box, this guy right here, I can either add the total row or the total column. I should get the same no matter what. I'm going to add the total column, so 47 plus 53, and that gives me 100. And then just to double check, I can do 67 plus 33, which is the total row, and that also gives me 100. And there we have it. So all of that's filled out now. Okay, great. So now let's look at the third example. The third example is super similar to the second example, except for now there are 3 different columns or 3 different options for the column. It says an elementary school teacher asked her students what their favorite summer activity was and split the data based on the student's age. So you have a row of 10-year-olds and a row of 11-year-olds, and then the 3 things they can choose from are sports games, water parks, and movie theaters. So the way that I like to look at this, I didn't really say this in the second example, but the way that I like to look at this, I like to find something that only has one blank. So whether it's a row or a column, I want to find something that has one blank. And if I look at this, there's only one option that only has one blank, and it's this column right here, the water park column. Because I know, based on the data that I already have filled out, that 3 10-year-olds like the water park, and there are a total of 10 people who like the water park. So to find the number of 11-year-olds that like the water park, I can do 10 minus 3, which gives me 7. So that 7 should go right in there. All right, now again, you're looking for one thing, whether it be a row or a column, that only has one blank. And again, there's only one option, and it's this 11-year-olds or 11-year-olds row, because now that you filled out that 7, you only have one blank left in there. And this one, we have the total of 12. We know that there are 5 people that liked sports games and 7 people that liked water parks. So how many people liked how many 11-year-olds liked movie theaters? Well, what we would do is we would say 12 minus 7 minus 5, and whatever that gives us is the amount of 11-year-olds that like movie theaters. Now 12 minus 7 minus 5 gives me 0, which means there are 0 11-year-olds that chose movie theaters. Getting 0 is totally fine on these ones. Okay, so now we have a little bit more information. We can actually now finish off the movie theater column. We know there are 8 10-year-olds that like movie theaters and 0 11-year-olds that like movie theaters, so the total amount of movie theater lovers would be 8 plus 0, which gives me 8. And now I can go down, I'm going to go down to the very bottom row, which is the total row, because I know there are a total of 35 students, and I know 8 of them like movie theaters and 10 of them like water parks. So to find the amount that like sports games, I would do 35, which is the total, minus 8, minus 10. And I subtract both of those values because when you have more than 2 things that you're basing the data off of, like there's 3 things right here, sports games, water parks, and movie theaters, we have to subtract the remaining data. And so I do 35 minus 8 minus 10, which gives me 17. So this guy right here is 17. All right, now we're going to go back to the sports games column, or we can do the total column. Let's do the sports games column just because it'll be a little bit easier, I think. I know there are a total of 17 kids that like sports games, and 5 of them are 11-year-olds. So to find the amount of 10-year-olds, I do 17 minus 5, which gives me 12. So there are 12 10-year-olds that like sports games. And then the last column that we can fill out is the total amount of 10-year-olds. And we know that we can do, because that's a total, we're just going to add 12 plus 3 plus 8. Because there are 12 10-year-olds that like sports games, 3 10-year-olds that like water parks, and 8 10-year-olds that like movie theaters. So when I add all of those, I get 23, which means this guy is 23. And there we have it. Okay, one more example. This example gives us a table that is totally blank, but it gives us a little bit more information here. And so as we read through this information, we have to fill out some of the table with the information that was given, and then we can fill out the rest by adding and subtracting. So let's start with what it says. It says a survey was conducted to determine the favorite sports of males and females. There were a total of 100 people surveyed, and 35 of them were women. There were also 10 males that said their favorite sport was baseball, and a total of 65 people's favorite sport was football. So let's start with the thing that says that there was a total of 100 people surveyed. Because I know there was a total of 100 people surveyed, that 100 goes in that bottom right corner. That will always be the total amount of people surveyed. So great, that's step 1. We also know that 35 of those people were women. Now, it didn't necessarily say that they were women that liked football or women that liked baseball. It was the total amount of women, which means that I'm going to find the female column or female row and put 35 in for the total, because I know there were 35 total women. Now, it also says that 10 males said their favorite sport was baseball. So I'm going to go to the male row, but it only says that we have 10 males that said their favorite sport was baseball, which means that I'm not going to put the 10 in the total column, but I'm going to put the 10 where the baseball is, because there were 10 males that said their favorite sport was baseball. Not football, but baseball. And then the last thing that it gives us is that there's a total of 65 people who loved football. So I'm going to go to the football column. I don't know if they're female or male, but I do know that there were a total of 65 people that wanted, that liked football. Okay, so that's all the information that the text gave me. Now I should be able to fill out the rest of it by adding and subtracting. So remember, when we're looking at this, we want to find something with only one blank in either the column or the row. I'm going to just start with my total columns because both of those only have one blank. So I'm going to start with my total column. I know there were a total of 100 people and 35 of them were female, so I can do 100 minus 35 to figure out what the total amount of males were, and there were 65 males because 100 minus 35 is 65. Now I'm going to go to the total row and do the same thing because I know there were a total of 100 people and 65 of them love football. So how many like baseball? I'm going to do 100 minus 65 to figure that out, and then I get 35. All right. And then now we should be able to fill out the rest. I'm going to start with my baseball category because I know there were a total of 35 people that liked baseball and 10 of them were male. So to find the other amount, you would do 35 minus 10, which gives me 25. So that tells me that 25 women that were surveyed liked baseball. And now we can do the columns to find out how many females and how many males liked football. I'm going to start with the female column. So I know there were a total of 35 females. 25 of them like baseball. To find the football, I'm going to do 35 minus 25, which gives me 10. And then to do the males, I'm going to do 65 minus 10 because there was a total of 65 males and 10 of them liked baseball. So I do 65 minus 10 and I get 55 to find that there were 55 males that liked football. And there we have it. This is how we fill out two-way frequency tables.